Hey everyone, this is Louis7, and even though I am overall very excited for the upcoming major update Wildwood for the Lord of the Rings Online, there are also a few particular things about Update 29 that concern me that I want to be discussing today, and I think they could be major issues for the update if they go into it. Before that, I do have a tiny bit of news that Update 29 Wildwood is currently slated for the second week of March, so my guess would be, if all things go to plan, there will maybe be another beta this week, and then next week, towards the middle or end of next week, we will actually see the full release for the update. And I do want to point out the background gameplay is me going through the Foracle instance. Agraroth the Narrow Delve is what it's called, and you'll get to see me basically be a noob on my word and as I go through it the first time and have no idea what's going on. And I will point out, actually, as a personal concern for this update, I'm still trying to figure out which character I want to go through it on. I have like my Hunter, Burglar, or Captain is basically options, and none of them are super exciting to me right now. But setting that aside, what I want to be going through today with the concerns are not necessarily bad things with the update, but depending how they go with the release, I think they can be very bad for the update and can be very negative for players. So with this video, I just want to inform everyone of some of the more maybe critical parts of the update and just things to be on the lookout for and potentially provide feedback on. So the very first thing I have is with reputation, and LOTRO in general, especially lately, is infamous for its reputation grinds, and this is especially true since Western Gondor. Rep grinds are just commonplace for new content in LOTRO, and they often require repeated running of content for a while, or conveniently you can speed it up with like boosts that you can get from the skirmish camp or even the LOTRO store, which is probably Standing Stone Game's favorite if you go that route. But in Wildwood, we will be getting 2 new factions, and each has their own reputation progression, and the biggest concern here, I think for me, on top of just the grind, the reputation grind could definitely be bad and is a concern, but there will be content gated behind reputation, as in quests. So quests will open up as you complete different reputation tiers with the new factions, it sounds like. And for anybody that follows me frequently, you probably know I am not a fan of content gating. When I first hear quests are locked behind reputation, it's something that I just immediately don't like the idea of. And overall very concerning, as the title of the video is the topic. So in general, I just don't believe content should be locked behind reputation. And to me, it punishes players who don't grind by not letting them do the content. And it also just has the potential for it to be time gated with dailies and weeklies and the such, which I think is very bad as well. So when things are time gated by dailies and weeklies, you can only do a certain amount of things a day or a certain amount of things a week. It's just very bad for all different types of players, I think, and it can lock players out of different content. So like in this case with reputation gating, if it's locked behind dailies, somebody who can play every day and can do the reputation dailies every day, it'll be okay for them, but some people can only play on the weekends or something, and it'll be very slow for them to actually unlock all the content. Even if they can play for a super long time on the weekends, like all weekend long, they'll be a lot farther behind than somebody who maybe spends less overall time playing than if they can actually play daily and do whatever dailies. I don't know that's the way it works, but it's just something very concerning that I want to go on a little bit about. But as far as reputation grinds go in general, I think they can be an okay thing and are not inherently bad for players. Reputations can have cosmetics, in-game rewards, and even interesting gear pieces locked behind them. But again, it's the questing and potential story content behind rep that I ultimately don't think is a good thing. And having said all that, I don't actually know the exact structure of the questing and what type of quests are reputation gated. And I don't really want to get into specifics of this because I don't know all that, but it's something that is just concerning overall with the reputation gating of quests, especially in the overall reputation grind if it's really bad. I think this is particularly bad for somebody like myself who likes to play alts. I have a lot of different characters that I like to go through different areas of LOTRO. And let's say I have an alt that I want to go through Wildwood, but that new alt will have to do all the same reputation grind as the first character that I go through Wildwood on, and it would not be that appealing to me. And that's something that goes on throughout all of LOTRO, and especially the newer areas, I feel like. And that's why this is a concern, because all these newer areas, even if this is a low-level area that's coming up, all the newer areas just have bad reputation grinds, it seems like, that I am personally not a fan of, and that is what is concerning. So And I think potentially for other players, it can just be something that makes the update not good and poorly received from the player's point of view. And it's almost like how missions were with War of Three Peaks in that mini expansion actually. This update to me seems to balance on the reputation, how the reputation actually plays out in-game and the structure of that and the grind and all that, with how missions were to the mini expansion part of War of Three Peaks. But moving on, the next few things will be on the new instances, and my second concern overall is more specifically for the quest for those instances. So as an update sort of news bit, from the first beta round, it is confirmed you can access the new instances without any prerequisites besides character level, which I should have checked this in the beta. I totally meant to, but I don't know the exact level for each of the instances, but we'll get to that later. As far as the instance quests go, they are gated just kind of like the reputation topic. The instance quests are actually gated by certain quests though, and it's something that just bothers me personally. So for reference, as described in the beta notes, it is an intro quest line for these instances is available from Aragorn and Rivendell after completing Book 13, Chapter 10, A Triumphant Return. And then it also says, and from Hob Hayward at the Buckland Gate. So Book 13, Chapter 10, for anybody unfamiliar, that is near the end of the Foracle Epic Quest series, and the text is actually in those notes way clearer than the initial version from the beta round 1, but there are still some oddities with it. First, it says an intro quest line suggesting there are multiple quests and perhaps a whole storyline locked behind this book quest from Foracle. And second, the patch line still isn't clear on the quest from Hob Hayward at the Buckland Gate, if that also requires completion of this Foracle quest line, the epic quest there, Book 13, Chapter 10. And this is actually the most concerning part to me. The text, as far as the notes go, just isn't clear to me, and I personally have no idea how it actually makes sense for what is presumably the Old Forest quest line. That's what I assume Hob Hayward has at the Buckland Gate. It makes no sense for that to be locked behind the Foracle Epic to me, and it also brings to mind another issue with the level requirements for the instances, but I'll save that for a moment. And I feel like at this point I should mention that there is a lot here that I could have found out by actually playing the beta more, but I honestly only play betas actually to make content, inform you all of information, and even inform myself for videos like this. So for what is probably the average player who would not go to the beta on their own, I think this is definitely a big concern for them and myself as far as these quest lines go for these instances, with either them just not making sense in how you go about them, or if they will be locked behind some seemingly irrelevant storyline. And I should say with at least the Foracle instance, depending on how it fits in story-wise, I could totally see there being a quest locked behind Book 13, Chapter 10 that opens up after you complete that. But I think a concern here is if there are really nice rewards and a whole quest line locked behind that. For players who have not done that quest or have alts, going back to that example with the alts, that have not done that quest, it's kind of just like with the reputation gating, there could be players missing out on it because of that. So in summary for this, we will see, but all that stuff just really concerns me with the instances. And since I brought it up, for my third concern, I do want to touch on the level requirements for the new instances. And this is honestly something I forgot to 100% confirm from the beta as well, but for somebody not knowing much about the update and just going on about their journey in LOTRO, I was wondering what level would it make sense for the instances to open up. I just totally hit my mic there, but at first I assumed level 45 because that is the level of Wildwood, but these instances don't appear to actually be related to Wildwood at all. So one is in Foracle, and the quest line for the instance doesn't start again until after you complete a bunch of level 50 quests. So yeah, to me that one would make sense, maybe level 50, but then the other one is Old Forest, which is broadly a level 15 to 20 area. So my concern is these instances will not unlock at an appropriate level. I personally think the Foracle one would make sense, like level 45 to 50 or so, and then the Old Forest one, I think 20 could actually be perfect because that's when you unlock the first set of instances anyway, and this is actually one of the first areas you would go that would actually have an instance if you follow the level progression line in Bree going actually from the Shire side to the east, and then the Barrow Downs, of course, has the Great Barrow and all that. There are even the Erebor instances which unlock at level 20 nowadays, and a lot of other things. So that's why I think level 20 for that, but I guess the concern is maybe these instances will unlock at level 45 because that's with Wildwood, even though it seems at least unrelated to me at this point. Or maybe it's just some other random level, and that honestly, there's just a lot of concerns there, I guess, is what I should say in summary on that. But moving on, I want to talk about character progression and rewards, especially with the instances. So with the instances, my concern is mainly they won't be rewarding, and I actually think there are two parts of this problem. First, for leveling characters, there could be a lack of gear or other relevant rewards for a low-level character that wants to run these. And second, for level cap characters, maybe the rewards are like driven for level 45 content in Wildwood. Again, a bunch unknown there for myself, and then there would be like, if all the rewards are for low levels, there would be little motivation to actually run these new instances at 130. And additionally, this is actually something us players could not test in the beta because itemization for both reputation barters and the instances was not complete. So I think this is a concern for every player, actually, even solo ones, because the new instances can be run solo if you'd like. There's a solo version of them. There are actually a couple other concerns with the instances that I want to get to while we are talking about them, and the first is with the fourth story in Foracle. So currently Agaroth the Narrow Delve has a relatively long story part after the first couple bosses and before the last boss. I don't know if you all will get to see all that in this video, but usually when something like this happens in an instance, it basically means players will actually opt to skip what is admittedly a cool instance, I think, just because it takes too long to run, because there's this whole scene that plays every single time you run this instance with no option to skip it or speed things up. It might be neat to see once as far as the instance goes to get that experience and see the storyline, but if you are wanting to farm this instance or just run it multiple times with your characters, then you will have to go through that every time, and I think there's a potential people won't run it because of that. And I think it could be a major issue for Wildwood, one of the two instances, that's half the instances that maybe would not be run just because of that issue. And then moving on for my last instance concern is that in the beta they were listed in the War of Three Peaks section, and there are a few things going on there. First, if these instances are technically a part of War of Three Peaks, then they are like a part of the mini expansion and won't come with the Wildwood quest pack, and I think that would be a major issue for this update, and honestly just makes absolutely no sense at all, because these instances, as best as I can tell, are not actually connected in any way to War of Three Peaks. And that also does bring the question, or a few questions to mind. How do these instances actually fit into the game? I guess that's what I'm sort of getting to with all this talk about the instances. Like, are they technically a part of Wildwood, or are they just their own thing? Maybe they would actually be best uncategorized in the instance panel, not a part of War of Three Peaks. And actually, because they're in the War of Three Peaks section, are they rewards going to be War of Three Peaks related and maybe totally unhelpful to leveling players? Or are they actually going to be Wildwood related? Or, I don't know, there's just a lot of concern there with all those things, and I think that is the best way to summarize it. Overall, while the new low-level instances is exciting, I think their success and reception by the players really depends on how they are actually implemented and how rewarding they are, and not just like rewarding for level cap characters, but rewarding for both leveling and level cap characters. And yeah, really just hope they make sense to actually run for players. But moving on, for my next major concern, I want to cover landscape rewards. This is actually going to be the last topic here. And for deeds and virtue XP, my main concern is that because Wildwood is a part of Breland in the deed panel, that totally does make sense, by the way, but my concern there is there won't be any good like meta deeds for big virtue XP gains, but we will have to see on that, and it is a concern just because anything to help virtue XP in that grind I think is nice, and it's a concern there won't be anything good in this or comparable to other zones, say, because it is a part of Breland. But moving on, for content in general, I don't think it is actually a big concern that the landscape content won't be rewarding for level cap characters. And while it would be nice if the like reputation barters have some sort of scaling rewards that people at the level cap would actually find useful, I'm personally totally fine with the Wildwood landscape really being for level 45 characters, because that is what it is. But that said, I am concerned maybe the reputation rewards will only be cosmetics and there won't be much useful stuff actually for level 45 players, like useful for their character equipment, gear, that type of stuff. And actually the same goes for missions, which scale up to the level cap, and if it is like the Gabalaka, basically, they won't really overall be rewarding besides motes of enchantment, and honestly, motes of enchantment are actually decently useful, especially if you need to upgrade a lower upgraded ally with the imbuement system. But besides that, the barters are mostly cosmetic with the Gabalaka, or only cosmetic with the Gabalaka, so there's a concern the missions will only have cosmetic rewards besides motes of enchantment. It would be nice to have something a little bit extra there, and that's one of the big, actually, topics of feedback I had for the mission system in general with War of Three Pieces. There just wasn't much to actually reward players for running them, it seemed like. But those are actually all of my concerns that I can think of for Update 29 Wildwood and LOTRO. Again, overall, I am excited for the update, and these are just things that really can hold it back depending on how stuff works out upon the actual release of it, which could be within the next couple weeks, it sounds like. But in summary, I am overall worried about the reputation gating content and just the rep grind in general, then how the instances will actually fit into the update, and finally with the reward system for all the new content and how it will actually motivate players to run this new stuff. But that is all I have for this video. If you could actually share maybe some of your concerns, or if you have any thoughts on the topics that I covered in this video, please do comment down below. I'll be very interested in reading what people think about it. And if you did enjoy this video or learn something useful from it, please consider liking and subscribing for more, or becoming a channel member to support the content, and thanks for watching, everyone.